Greetings, everyone. You're tuned into Six Path Weeb, and I'm excited to welcome you to the channel. Today's fanfiction exploration dives into a fascinating twist in the Naruto universe. What if Naruko possessed the Byakugan? Before we begin, a quick disclaimer: this content is created purely for entertainment and thoughtful discussion. I do not claim ownership of any anime clips or materials used. Full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. Now, with that said, let's dive in. Hey, what are you doing? A boy with dark brown hair asked curiously, watching the blonde girl sitting calmly before him. Naruko had been sitting peacefully, completely focused in her training, until the boy's voice pulled her out of concentration. I'm practicing chakra control, she replied kindly but firmly. And I need to stay focused. So, if you don't mind. The boy glanced around the wooded area before returning his gaze to her. Why are you doing this in the woods? It's not really the safest place. Shouldn't you head home? I'll be alright, the 9-year-old girl responded softly, her focus already returning. Could you please give me some space? Naruko tried to resume her calm state, but the boy suddenly poked her with a stick, snapping her out of it again. That's enough, Naruko exclaimed, standing up, only to be pushed aside gently by an older girl who appeared out of nowhere. Leave my little sister alone. The older girl said protectively, nudging the boy away. The boy quickly tried to calm his sister down, but Naruko had already turned and hurried away, not wanting to cause any more trouble. You shouldn't talk to her, the girl scolded her brother softly. It's just better to stay away. Naruko moved swiftly through the trees. She was used to moments like this. They reminded her of how careful she needed to be around others. A few kind people had stood by her side: Iruka-sensei, the Hokage, old man Ichiraku and his daughter Ayame, and a few masked shinobi who showed her kindness now and then. But most people didn't understand her. Hey, Naruko, a cheerful voice called out. A friendly man with a tan complexion and dark hair placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Naruko jumped, still a little shaken from earlier. Are you okay? Why yes, Iruka-sensei, she answered quickly, trying to hide her nerves. What happened? Iruka asked, kneeling to meet her gaze. Nothing, sensei, she said quietly, though she knew he could see through her. All right, he said with a gentle smile. If you tell me what's bothering you, I'll treat you to some ramen. The offer immediately brightened Naruko's eyes. Iruka could only smile, he knew exactly what her favorite food was. After several bowls of ramen and Naruko sharing her day, a quiet moment passed between them. Why do some people avoid me, sensei? She asked, eyes cast downward. Iruka sighed softly. I wish I had a simple answer, Naruko. Some people hold on to things that happened long ago. But none of it is your fault. I don't really get it, sensei, she mumbled. You will. One day, he said with a kind expression. Naruko nodded slowly and turned back to her ramen, now working on her 11th bowl. You'd better head home soon, Iruka said as he paid the bill. You've got school in the morning. Naruko gasped as she realized the time, coughing from eating too fast. And slow down, Iruka said, patting her gently on the back until she recovered. Can you walk me home? Naruko asked. Of course, he replied warmly, ruffling her hair. I need to make sure you actually go straight home, so no skipping out tomorrow. Naruko giggled and walked alongside him, grateful for the company. She knew he wasn't walking her home just to keep an eye on her, he was one of the few people who genuinely cared. Byakugan. Naruko called out excitedly in her apartment. The Hokage had gifted her a few books for her 9th birthday, and one had caught her attention, a history of the clans and bloodlines of Konohagakure. As she read, she became fascinated by the idea of bloodline techniques. Since she didn't know her parents, Naruko imagined that maybe, just maybe, she might have inherited something special. She had already tried a few abilities from different clans, with no success. But when she reached the section on the Hyuga clan, something strange happened. The book offered only a brief history and an illustration of the Byakugan. Following the instructions closely, Naruko made the hand signs and focused her chakra on her eyes. For good measure, she called out the name. At first, nothing happened. But then, suddenly, her head pulsed with discomfort, and she collapsed. The intense feeling passed as quickly as it had come, and when she opened her eyes, everything looked different. Clearer. Sharper. She could see all around her, even behind and above. Wow. Is this what the Byakugan really does? She whispered, awestruck. Before she could explore further, her vision shifted to the clock. She was going to be late for school if she didn't get to bed fast. Dash. Naruko awoke with a start and bolted upright. I'm gonna be late, she shouted, scrambling to get dressed. She grabbed her orange jacket, zipped it up, and caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Her smile widened as she saw her bright, pupilless blue eyes staring back. I can't wait to show Iruka-sensei, she said, leaping out of the window. As the wind swept through the room, it flipped the pages of her book to the final section, where only part of a word, Nami, was visible before the book snapped shut. Dash. Nara, Shikamaru, Iruka called out during roll call. Here, a lazy voice responded. Haruno, Sakura? Here, sensei. The pink-haired girl answered enthusiastically. Hyuga, Hinata? Be present, sensei. Came a quiet voice. Uzumaki, Naruko? The room went silent. Has anyone seen Naruko? Iruka asked, looking around. Hinata shifted nervously. It wasn't a secret that she admired Naruko, though the girl herself never seemed to notice. Hinata often worried about what her family would think, but she couldn't help how she felt. Just then, Naruko burst through the classroom door in her usual bright orange jumpsuit, her spiky blonde hair bouncing with every step. Sorry I'm late, sensei, she said, bowing quickly. I'm sure, Iruka said with a knowing smile. Let me guess, training again? Naruko nodded. I was working on a jutsu last night and lost track of time. Then I'm sure you won't mind showing us what you learned, Iruka added with a smirk. Naruko hesitated as she walked to the front. Iruka noticed her unusual silence. She always walked with her head held high, but now she was looking down. As she reached the front of the class, she raised her head and activated her chakra. The veins around her eyes appeared, and when she opened them, the Byakugan was clearly visible. Everyone froze. Byakugan, Hinata gasped, standing up in surprise. Naruko, you can use the Byakugan? Iruka blinked in astonishment. Not only had Hinata spoken loudly, but she hadn't even stuttered. He approached to see for himself. Sure enough, Naruko had activated the Byakugan. Hinata, Naruko, come with me, Iruka said calmly. Class, another teacher will be here shortly. Please behave. He led the two girls to another room and closed the door gently behind them. Hinata, Naruko, I need you to wait here for a moment while I speak with the Hokage and get a substitute teacher. Is this really that important? Naruko asked, confused by all the attention. Why yes, Naruko-san, Hinata answered shyly. The Hyuga clan guards their bloodline abilities very closely. And the fact that you activated it yourself raises important questions, Iruka added, seeing Hinata struggle to finish. Okay. We'll wait, Naruko agreed. After a few quiet moments, Hinata's curiosity got the better of her. How did you activate it, Naruko-san? She asked softly. I got a book from the Hokage for my birthday, Naruko said with a small smile. It talked about all the different clans. I just wanted to see if maybe I had something in common with one of them. I don't know who my parents were. I understand. Hinata replied gently. And with that, the two girls sat quietly, a little closer now than before, two children sharing a small mystery and the beginning of an unexpected friendship. So I went through every one of the bloodlines in the village until I came to the Hyuga bloodline. There was very little information on it, but just enough for me to try and awaken its abilities. And when I did, well, this is what happened. It was much more uncomfortable the first time though. Yes, it was, Hinata agreed softly. May I ask what this is about, Iruka? Came a calm and wise voice from outside the classroom. It's something you'll want to see, Hokage-sama, Iruka replied. And might I ask why I was brought here? Asked another man. Hinata turned pale, she recognized that voice instantly. Iruka opened the door to reveal two children, and the three elders entered the classroom. All right, Iruka, the Hokage began, bracing himself, what has Naruko done, and how is this related to Hyashi's daughter? Actually, this doesn't directly concern Hyuga-san's daughter. I simply believed it wouldn't be wise to leave Naruko alone, and Hinata seemed the best person to stay with her. The Hokage gave a thoughtful nod. So what is the purpose of this meeting? When Iruka called for Naruko, she opened her eyes and, just before activating the Byakugan, the words "don't tell me she's" could be heard faintly. There were very few things that had ever truly surprised Hyuga Hyashi. But now, seeing the child so many had dismissed, Hyashi's expression changed. Naruko had awakened the Byakugan. I suppose it's in her lineage, Hyashi murmured, trying to maintain composure. That wasn't very kind, Hyuga-san, Naruko said with a slight pout. Hyashi attempted to brush it off, but the expression on Naruko's face had already won over Iruka and the Hokage, who burst into genuine laughter. Even Hyashi couldn't help but chuckle, and the surprised look on his daughter's face made it all the more heartwarming. Once things had settled, the adults began discussing the next steps. She'll have to move into the Hyuga household, Hyashi said firmly. We cannot allow someone with untrained Hyuga abilities to remain unsupervised. It is tradition. I understand your reasoning, Hyashi, the Hokage replied, but she cannot be marked. That would not be acceptable under any circumstance. Yes, I agree, Hyashi said. Then I'll make her a member of the main house. How do you plan to do that? The Hokage asked curiously. I'll adopt her. The elders may protest, but I'm still the clan head. So long as I hold that position, they cannot override my decision. You're sure about this? The Hokage asked. Hyashi gestured for the Hokage to join him in the hallway. As the door closed behind them, he spoke more privately. We both know who Naruko's parents were, Hyashi said. I've never been comfortable with the idea of her growing up alone. Some in my own clan judge her for things she had no part in. But if she is my daughter under my care, no one will harm her. The Hokage gave a respectful nod. The truth is, I want her close, Hyashi continued. You saw what just happened. I haven't laughed like that in a long time. She also seems to help Hinata open up. I believe having her in our home will be good for the entire clan. If you believe this is what's best, then I support your decision, the Hokage replied. But let it be known, if anyone attempts to mistreat Naruko, I will address it personally. The gravity of the Hokage's words settled over Hyashi. Though his status offered protection, he knew there would always be risks. He silently resolved to ensure Naruko's safety, especially during the night. Iruka. The Hokage called. The teacher opened the door and returned with the two girls. Please resume your class with Naruko and Hinata. The two of you will be escorted to the Hyuga compound after class, Hyashi said. Guards will be sent to accompany you. Please wait here until they arrive. Yes, Hyuga-sama, Hinata responded politely. Yes, Naruko added. Hyashi nodded, and he and the Hokage walked down the hall. Behave yourself, Naruko, the Hokage called back kindly. Naruko winced playfully. Somehow, the old man always knew what she was thinking. As Naruko entered the room, she felt the usual stares. However, this time they were different, filled with curiosity. Her classmates had thought they understood who she was. Now, she was a mystery. Only one gaze remained unwelcoming, Sasuke Uchiha's. His glare radiated frustration. Class passed uneventfully, with Iruka discussing advanced chakra control. When it ended, students left with their parents until only 3 remained. Who do you think you are? Sasuke demanded, fists clenched. I've trained for years to awaken my Sharingan, and you just activate something you're not even supposed to have? That's your problem, not mine, Naruko said calmly. I'm not interested in your Sharingan, and this has nothing to do with you. Please leave me alone. I won't, he snapped, throwing 6 shuriken at her. What happened next amazed Hinata. With movements so swift they were barely visible, Naruko channeled chakra into her arms and hands, catching every single shuriken effortlessly. She had instinctively tapped into the Hyuga's signature technique. Letting the weapons fall to the ground, Naruko deactivated her Byakugan and turned away. I said leave me alone. Fine, Sasuke said, his tone sharp. I don't need weapons. Both girls sensed a surge of chakra in Sasuke's chest. Before they could react, he released a large stream of fire. Giant fireball. When the smoke cleared, the ground was scorched, but Hinata and Naruko were no longer in harm's way. Such behavior could be seen as a direct threat to the Hyuga clan, said a calm voice behind Sasuke. He turned to see a Hyuga guard holding both girls safely. Sasuke scoffed and walked away. Your actions will be reported to the Hokage and your instructor, the guard added. There will be consequences for this. Turning to the girls, the guard gently placed them down. Hinata-sama, Naruko-san, please come with me. I've been assigned to escort you to the Hyuga estate. Thank you, Yami-san, Hinata said respectfully, bowing. Yes, thank you, Naruko added. I wasn't sure how I could have handled that last move. You did well, the guard said with a smile. You caught all his shuriken using chakra control. I think our style suits you perfectly. Dash. Inside the Hyuga estate, the elders had gathered. I cannot approve this. One elder exclaimed. We cannot welcome her into the household. I agree, said another. We don't know what she may bring with her. Wouldn't it be better to keep her outside the main house? I will not allow that, Hyashi said firmly, silencing the room. The Hokage and I agree, Naruko will be treated with respect and care. Do you not trust your own family? Another asked. It's not a matter of trust, Hyashi replied. It's a matter of awareness. May I speak freely, Hyuga-sama? One elder requested. You may. I do not understand your interest in this girl, but I believe many of us agree, she brings unpredictability. I fear she could disrupt our traditions. I understand your concern, Hyashi said thoughtfully. May I also speak? Another elder asked. Go ahead, Hizashi, Hyashi replied. I believe the energy Naruko brings may be exactly what this clan needs. We have followed structure for generations, but perhaps it's time for something new. Her spirit could strengthen our unity. Well spoken, Hyashi said. I've made my decision. Naruko will be welcomed as a member of the Hyuga clan. Hi, Hyuga-sama, the elders replied together. Outside, Hyashi, Hizashi, Neji, and Hanabi were waiting when Hinata and Naruko arrived. After a warm welcome and a report from Yami about the earlier incident, Hizashi knelt to greet Naruko. My name is Hizashi, he said kindly. I'm Hyashi's brother and Hinata's uncle. I also lead the branch family. Branch? Naruko repeated, a little confused. You'll come to understand our traditions soon, child, Hizashi said with a calm smile. But until then, allow me to warmly welcome you, on behalf of the entire branch house, to the Hyuga clan. Hizashi bowed politely to Naruko, and the blonde girl returned the gesture with equal respect. My name is Neji, the younger Hyuga introduced himself. I am Hinata's cousin, Hyuga-sama's nephew, and heir to the branch house. Naruko gave a small bow to the slightly taller boy before turning her attention to Hyashi. This is my youngest daughter, Hanabi, Hyashi said gently, introducing the little girl who remained quietly behind his leg. She tends to be shy around new people, but I'm sure she'll become more comfortable over time. Naruko bowed kindly to Hanabi, who gave a small, polite nod in return. And if you were not already aware, I am Hyuga Hyashi, head of the Hyuga clan, Hyashi continued. In the coming years, you will learn much about our traditions and values. There will also be certain responsibilities expected of you as a member of the clan. You'll meet a few more individuals today, and then we will return to your apartment to collect your belongings. At the end of this school year, you will be withdrawn from the public academy for home-based instruction. During this time, your education will focus on both Hyuga practices and academic subjects. You will return to the academy for your final year to complete your practical training and graduate as a fully recognized shinobi of the Hyuga clan. Do you have any questions? Naruko shook her head slowly. This certainly wasn't what she had imagined when she thought about being part of a clan. Very well. You will be studying alongside Hinata, Hyashi added, motioning to his daughter. She too will be receiving her education at home until the final year. Naruko gave a small nod, still processing everything. Excellent. Let us begin the tour, Hyashi said, gesturing for Naruko to follow him into the compound. It was true that Naruko hadn't expected much from joining a clan. If anything, she had assumed she wouldn't be accepted at all, considering how others often kept their distance. But this experience was nothing like she had anticipated. Being welcomed into the esteemed Hyuga clan felt surreal, and she couldn't help but feel a bit overwhelmed. As she walked through the elegant corridors, one single thought echoed in her mind. What have I just stepped into? Naruko shifted uneasily in her room. She had been living with the Hyuga family for nearly 4 months, and, apart from her blonde hair and bright blue eyes, she could almost blend in with the rest of the clan. How are things going, Naruko-chan? Hizashi asked gently, surprising her from behind. I'm doing well, Hizashi-sama, she replied with a small stammer. I can see you're still a bit uncomfortable, the branch head noted, offering her a kind pat on the shoulder. But the training attire you're wearing is important for several reasons. Naruko glanced at him, slightly doubtful, but nodded anyway. The outfit made her feel like she was wearing something too different from what she was used to. Why do I need to wear this, Hizashi-sama? She finally asked, unable to keep the question in. The gentle fist technique, he explained in a matter-of-fact tone. It requires precise and fluid movements, almost like a carefully choreographed dance. The uniform allows you full range of motion for your arms and legs. Once you've mastered the basics, you'll be permitted to wear other clothing styles during practice. Naruko lowered her head slightly, accepting the explanation. She already missed her old life. Though she now had people around her, a sense of belonging, and even a sort of family, the many rules felt overwhelming. "You'll get used to it, Naruko-chan," Hisashi said, smiling sincerely. "If you say so, Hisashi-sama," Naruko replied quietly. "Besides, Neji and Hinata are both here to help guide you." Naruko said nothing. Hinata was sweet and supportive, but Neji took everything very seriously, maybe too seriously for her liking. "What was that look for?" Hisashi asked with an amused smile. "You've never had to study with Neji-san," Naruko answered, clearly worn out by the thought. Hisashi chuckled at that. She was far too young to carry such an exhausted expression, and yet she did so effortlessly. "You'll grow used to him. In time, you might even find yourselves getting along quite well." Naruko's expression said otherwise, which only made Hisashi laugh more. Somehow, her energy brought something new and refreshing to the Hyuga household. The first few months of Naruko's training were relatively calm, with only a few lingering habits from her past surfacing. Even in a house full of keen-eyed Byakugan users, she managed to cause a bit of mischief. One memorable moment, which delighted Hisashi but earned a stern lecture from Hisashi, was when Naruko sneakily added red dye to the clan head's laundry. When Hisashi ended up dressed entirely in pink, Hisashi could hardly contain his laughter. Afterward, Naruko promised not to pull any more pranks like that, and a watch was permanently assigned to Hiyashi's quarters. After the incident, Naruko focused more intently on her training. She quickly caught up to the others. 4 months into her stay, she completed the basic stances and was now required to observe advanced techniques during sparring sessions. Together with Hinata, she would watch older students practice, memorizing the flow and coordination of movements. In time, the two of them began participating in these matches. Naruko had already advanced in chakra control, an essential aspect of the gentle fist technique. However, during practice, they were asked to use only physical strikes to maintain focus on proper form. One day, during a training session, Naruko revealed a surprising aspect of her abilities. As she prepared to spar with an older student, Hyuga Hisashi entered the training grounds. "Hisashi-sama," an elder greeted respectfully, "It's an honor. What brings you here?" "I came to observe the progress of our newest member," Hisashi replied. "May I request a proper demonstration?" "You would like a full demonstration of the technique?" "Yes, please pair Naruko with Hikari." "As you wish, my lord." Soon, Naruko faced a new opponent, this one more experienced in the gentle fist style. "You may use your full training in this match," the instructor announced. "Hisashi-sama wishes to evaluate your progress." Naruko and Hikari bowed respectfully to the instructor, then to each other. Before beginning, Naruko turned toward Hisashi and gave a deep, respectful bow. "I hope to meet your expectations, Hisashi-sama," she said earnestly. Hisashi returned the bow, and Naruko focused on her match. "I will win this match," Hikari said, locking eyes with her. Naruko simply activated her Byakugan and moved into her stance. "Begin," the instructor called. As Hikari charged, Naruko closed her eyes briefly and slowed her breathing, a small but important detail noticed only by Hisashi. She deflected Hikari's first strike with a clean counter, followed by 2 swift strikes of her own. The final touch was light but perfectly placed. Hikari staggered back, unaware that she had already weakened his defenses. The match continued, and while the onlookers saw only a series of exchanges, Hisashi noticed something remarkable. Naruko's opponent was tiring quickly. With his Byakugan active, Hisashi saw why. Every one of Naruko's strikes had been deliberate and precise. In a graceful final move, Naruko flipped over her opponent and lightly tapped a key point on his neck. Hikari fell unconscious. The audience was stunned. Naruko bowed to her opponent, then to her instructor, and finally to Hisashi. "I am very pleased with your development, Naruko," Hisashi said warmly. "You've done exceptionally well." Naruko's cheeks flushed pink as she bowed once more. Though still a novice, she was showing great promise. It felt like the gentle fist had been made for her. As her first year as a Hyuga passed, Naruko's training took a new direction. Her sparring sessions were reduced to 4 per week, with the remaining days dedicated to rigorous academic study. It felt like school from sunrise to sunset. She studied Hyuga history, the clans of Konohagakure, political alliances, and the origins of ninjutsu. Her weeks were carefully structured, with sparring mixed in to ensure balance. Emotionally, Naruko began to grow as well. Hisashi taught her the importance of restraint and presentation. In public, she was to carry the elegance of a Hyuga, but in private, he encouraged her to remain true to herself. He spoke of changing the Hyuga clan from within. Naruko adapted. Though her appearance set her apart, her blonde hair and blue eyes were hard to ignore, she found a way to belong. Her first friend was Hinata, who accepted her from the beginning. Neji eventually came around too, often standing up for Naruko when others glared or whispered unfairly. Naruko's academic training expanded further with language lessons and deeper strategic studies. Before long, another year passed, and her practical training intensified. Alongside Neji and other students, Naruko participated in advanced exercises, including obstacle courses, controlled group battles, and target practice. One day, unrest swept through the Hyuga estate. An outsider had tried to sneak into the compound. Thanks to Hisashi's quick intervention, the young Hanabi was found safe, and the stranger was detained. The situation unsettled the clan. "Hisashi-sama," Naruko asked gently, "is everything all right?" "All is well, Naruko-chan," Hisashi replied with a calm smile. "Someone tried to take Hanabi, but I was able to stop them." Relieved, Naruko bowed and returned to her quarters, her thoughts on Hinata and Hanabi. She became a comforting presence for both girls as they adjusted to the events. Some weeks later, with the situation resolved, Neji prepared to enter the academy. "Now, Naruko, Hinata," Hisashi said as he escorted them to the gates, "remember to represent the Hyuga name with honor and dignity. Is that clear?" "Yes, Hisashi-sama," the two girls replied in unison, bowing respectfully. Although their expressions remained composed, excitement shimmered beneath the surface. After 3 long years within the compound, they were finally stepping outside. Naruko looked forward to running through the village once again. Hinata, meanwhile, was happy to enjoy Naruko's company beyond the constant observation of the Byakugan. As they walked through the gate, Hisashi smiled faintly. He could see the joy behind Hinata's reserved demeanor. The warmth in their spirits didn't go unnoticed. "So, the academy starts back up tomorrow," Naruko mused aloud. "Yes, Naruko-chan," Hinata answered softly. "It doesn't really seem fair." The blonde girl murmured quietly, her words only audible to Hinata. "We just finished all that training with the clan, and now we're going back to school again? I kind of wanted a little break." "Naruko, you know why things are structured this way," Hinata replied gently. "Yeah. I guess," Naruko sighed. The two of them walked into the market district of the village, surrounded by the familiar rhythm of daily life. "Well, if nothing else, I get to show Iruka-sensei how much I've improved." Hinata smiled at Naruko's determination. Even when she was feeling a little down, Naruko always found a way to lift her own spirits, and often, the spirits of those around her too. Before long, they found themselves outside Ichiraku Ramen, almost as if Naruko had led them there without thinking. After a quick word between them, the two sat down at the stand. "Hey, old man," Naruko called out cheerfully. "Who are you calling old, you?" Tucci began, turning toward the familiar voice, before pausing. "Is that you, Naruko?" "You got it, old man," Naruko replied with a big grin. It was understandable that Tucci didn't recognize her at first glance. Naruko had grown significantly over the past few years, in both height and appearance. Her time with the Hyuga clan had brought her more than just discipline, it had helped her thrive. Her bright blonde hair had grown longer, flowing halfway down her back, though the front still retained its signature spikes. She wore a loose black shirt and tan cargo pants, her posture relaxed but confident. The girl Tucci had once known had grown into a poised and strong young woman, something Ayame had commented on more than once. "So what have you been up to all this time, Naruko?" Tucci asked as he served their bowls. "Training," Naruko replied between mouthfuls of delicious ramen, temporarily forgetting the polished manners the Hyuga had tried to instill. "So it's true then," Ayame said thoughtfully, giving Naruko a quick once-over. "You've been living with the Hyuga clan." Naruko finished her bowl and turned to look at Ayame, who gasped and flushed slightly at the intensity of those sky-blue eyes. Despite being younger, Naruko had a graceful, confident presence that was hard to ignore. Her clear, expressive gaze held warmth and depth, something Ayame hadn't expected to be so moved by. Hinata, noticing Ayame's reaction, fidgeted slightly. Though she didn't speak, her small movement spoke volumes. Ayame smiled knowingly and began gathering their empty bowls. "You ready for another bowl, Naruko?" Tucci asked from behind a pot of steaming noodles. "Thanks, but I've got to head out," Naruko replied, hopping off her stool. "There's still a lot I want to see today. It's my first day out in 3 years, I want to make the most of it." She added with a laugh, gently taking Hinata's wrist. Tucci blinked in surprise. He'd served Naruko ramen for nearly a decade and couldn't remember a single time she'd left after only one bowl. "Well, be sure to come back again soon. You're always welcome here," he called after her as the girls disappeared from view. Ayame turned to her father with a quiet smile. "It's not just a simple crush anymore." "I see it too," Tucci replied, chuckling softly. "She's fallen for Naruko. They'd make a good pair." After several hours of exploring the village and visiting shops, Naruko and Hinata reluctantly returned toward the Hyuga estate. A few minutes later, Hinata noticed Naruko walking toward the gates again. "Where are you going, Naruko?" she asked gently. "I just remembered something I wanted to grab earlier but forgot about," Naruko said, scratching the back of her head with a sheepish grin. "Want me to come with you?" "Nah, it's all right. I know where it is. I'll be back in half an hour," Naruko reassured her before heading out. Hinata watched her go, feeling a bit disappointed, but she understood. She still had responsibilities of her own as heir to the Hyuga clan. With a soft sigh, she turned toward her father's chambers. It was a beautiful autumn morning, one of those days when the breeze danced through the trees and the air smelled crisp and full of promise. Naruko and Hinata had shared a peaceful walk, enjoying the sights, the sounds, and the comfort of each other's presence. But as they approached the academy, the atmosphere shifted. As per Hyashi's instructions, they adopted a more composed, reserved demeanor. Hinata was used to this, but for Naruko, it felt a little unnatural. Still, she didn't want to go against the clan head's wishes. She was also looking forward to surprising everyone, especially when no one recognized her right away. When they entered the classroom, they realized they were the first to arrive, even before Iruka-sensei. They took their usual seats near the back and quietly waited. Hinata rested her hands in her lap while Naruko leaned forward, hands clasped in front of her face. Soon, the classroom began to fill with students. Most chatted casually, though many of them shot curious glances at Naruko. She looked nothing like the energetic girl they had once known. "No way." Shikamaru muttered quietly. "That can't be Naruko. She wouldn't just sit there without announcing herself." "Who's the girl sitting next to Hinata?" Ino asked, intrigued. "She's just as stunning as Sasuke." "How should I know?" Shikamaru replied with a sigh. "Probably a bodyguard or something." Ino frowned at the answer. "Or maybe," Shikamaru added with a faint smirk, "she's Hinata's girlfriend." He watched Ino's reaction closely. Her expression clearly showed she didn't like the idea. Predictable, he thought. Ino strode over to Naruko's desk and leaned forward slightly to see her face better. Naruko had the quiet, graceful demeanor of a Hyuga. "So," Ino said casually, "what's your name?" Naruko opened her eyes and met Ino's gaze, her expression calm but serious. Ino stepped back quickly, startled. "Definitely a Hyuga," she thought nervously. Sorry to bother you," she mumbled, hurrying back to her seat under Naruko's gentle but firm gaze. Shikamaru chuckled quietly. He'd guessed she was with the Hyuga clan, but now he was certain. That look she gave Ino, it was classic Hyuga composure. "You know," Shikamaru murmured, "I really hope she's not Hinata's girlfriend. That would be one quiet relationship." "Attention, class!" Iruka called out. At some point, the room had completely filled, and the students quieted down. As predicted, most of the girls were sneaking glances at the unfamiliar, graceful new girl. "I will now begin roll call. Please respond when your name is called," Iruka instructed. He began reading names aloud as the class listened. "Haruno, Sakura." "Here, sensei," the pink-haired Kunoichi responded politely. "Hyuga, Hinata." The blue-haired Hyuga stood gracefully and bowed to Iruka, reciting the words that had been ingrained in her since childhood. "Hi, sensei." Iruka scanned his roster, preparing to call the next name, until his eyes landed on something unexpected. His expression shifted slightly, prompting confusion among several students. They assumed he would call out the next Hyuga clan member, but instead, he paused. He blinked, staring at the familiar name, then lifted his gaze toward a quiet presence in the classroom. His voice softened as he spoke. "Hyuga. Naruko." Gasps echoed through the room. Whispers fluttered around as many of the students looked toward the blonde Hyuga in astonishment. A noticeable hush fell over the class. Some of the girls were visibly flustered, taken aback by the realization that Naruko, whom they had noticed before, carried an unexpected mystique. Naruko, however, remained composed. Her training shone through. She stood calmly and bowed to her teacher. "Hi, Iruka-sensei." She then took her seat again, resting her hands lightly in front of her face. The sense of surprise lingered for several minutes. Only 4 students seemed unaffected: Naruko, Hinata, Shikamaru, and Sasuke. Shikamaru had quietly suspected something all along, while Sasuke had known from the moment he first saw her. Their eyes met briefly. For that single instant, the silent understanding between them flickered. A rematch was inevitable, both knew it. It had been years since Naruko had awakened her unique Kekkei Genkai, and neither of them wasted time on meaningless rivalry anymore. But a challenge between the Hyuga prodigy and the last Uchiha? That was different. That would come in due time. Eventually, the theoretical portion of the day gave way to physical training. "All right, class," Iruka announced, checking names on his clipboard. "Today we'll be evaluating your taijutsu skills. Everyone will pair off for sparring matches. I'll observe each match carefully to assess where each of you stands and how you can improve." He looked over the class to be sure they were listening. "Matches will last 5 minutes or until one person can no longer continue. No tools or outside techniques, just pure hand-to-hand training." As the names were called and matches began, a few entertaining mishaps occurred. One student's pants were accidentally tugged down during a kick, revealing cartoon-themed underwear. It took a while for Iruka to regain control of the giggling class. Even Naruko allowed a small smile to break through her calm exterior. Eventually, Iruka called her name. "Hyuga Naruko, please step forward." Naruko calmly walked to the designated sparring area. Iruka called the next name. "Inuzuka, Kiba." Kiba took his place across from her, cracking his knuckles and grinning. Akamaru, the little pup on his head, wagged his tail. "I'm going to need Akamaru to sit this one out," Iruka reminded. "No companions during sparring." "Got it. Akamaru, go sit by sensei." "I've got this," Kiba said, placing the pup gently down. Iruka signaled the start. "Begin." Kiba launched forward with confidence. "I've always wanted to see how I'd do against a Hyuga," he said as he tried to land a strike. "Oh no," Iruka thought, realizing a potential oversight. "Kiba, Naruko, stop." But it was too late. Naruko had already moved. Her posture was composed, her movements fluid and elegant. With a single well-placed motion, she deflected Kiba's attack and gently pushed him back. A clear thump sounded as Kiba stumbled and landed on the ground. Iruka rushed over, but Naruko was already kneeling beside Kiba, calmly checking his chakra points to make sure he was okay. She gently reopened the tenketsu points she had pressed. However, Kiba, still a bit disoriented, reacted on instinct and swung his arm without warning. Naruko shifted her weight and stepped back, her expression unshaken. "Kiba, that's enough," Iruka said firmly, stepping in. "The match is over." Kiba was still swinging recklessly, caught in frustration more than anything else. Meanwhile, Naruko stayed composed, slipping between his movements like a breeze. She didn't retaliate harshly, only defended with grace and patience. Finally, she finished the match with a clean, soft strike, not harsh or harmful, just enough to knock the wind from Kiba's chest and gently guide him to the ground. Iruka stepped forward. "Winner, Naruko." Naruko nodded respectfully and returned to the crowd. Iruka helped Kiba to his feet, gently offering feedback as he guided him aside. "When I say the match is over, it's over. Do you understand?" Iruka reminded kindly. "As for your form, you've got potential, but control is just as important as power." Naruko, meanwhile, returned her attention to the field. Her eyes quietly locked onto Sasuke, who stood at the edge of the crowd, watching her. Iruka prepared to call the next names. "Next match, Sasuke and..." "Naruko," Sasuke interrupted. "I'd like to spar with Naruko." Iruka shook his head. "Sorry, Sasuke. Naruko has already participated. You'll be paired with someone else." "She didn't even try in that match," Sasuke insisted. "She didn't use any of her real techniques. She was holding back." "I understand," Iruka replied, "but we're sticking to the rules." Sasuke hesitated, then sighed. "Fine. Choji, please step forward," Iruka continued. The match that followed was brief. Sasuke quickly subdued his opponent with precise, well-practiced movements. "That was amazing, Sasuke," Ino called out with a bright smile. Sakura nodded excitedly in agreement, also trying to get the Uchiha's attention. He paid neither any mind. His thoughts were elsewhere, on the girl who had stood calm and unshaken across the field. Naruko stood at the front of the crowd, quietly watching the rest of the matches unfold, her expression peaceful. Unbeknownst to her, someone stood just behind, Hinata, eyes focused on her classmate with quiet admiration, wishing she had the courage to speak the way Ino and Sakura did. Dear YouTube family. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world and fuels what comes next. Until we meet again in the next upload, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and as always, stay legendary. With appreciation. 6 Path Weeb.